So we should be live now. Never know on this thing when it actually starts because of the delays and all that good stuff. But welcome to the seventh edition of the Wealth Debate, the seventh edition of the Wealth Debate. So we are 7 in on the Wealth Debate and having a blast, everyone that we do. So as you guys come on to the Wealth Debate, if you could do me a favor and say hello, we love the interaction. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you love it, please let us know and say thank you, Pip. If you hate it, say, Sam, I need to talk to you. So please make sure that you're doing that. I would greatly appreciate it. And I will try to make a mention every time you give me some type of, what's the word I'm looking for? A comment. I will always try to reply to it. So I try to do that all the way through. And so Wendy, great to have you. Not that I'm surprised. Core told us that this was his favorite hour of the week. I'm thinking Core is really bored with life, but that's okay. I love it. I'm not going to complain. Not going to complain. So as you come on, please say hello. I would love to know if this is your first time on the Wealth Debate. A couple of housekeeping things I'm going to say now that I want to make sure. We got a lot more people live than we do that have said something on the chat. So say hello. I want to know who's here. I want to say good morning, good afternoon, whatever time it is to you guys. Now, with that being said, I want to tell Sam, because we just, my wife and I were just working on this. We had some people asking about seeing this recorded version of it if they haven't had a chance. The best place to do it is go to my YouTube channel. It's right, Pip Stellick, right on there. And then that way, that's marketing for you, Sam. Go to my YouTube channel, and I'm going to use Sam as my YouTube toy here. So yeah, it's all, don't go there. And so it's all good. So good to see Xiao, good to see Andres, good to see Gregory and Karina. Andres, how are you, sir? Wilfred, I think we still need to talk. Marlon, oh my gosh, Marlon all the way from New York City. Great to have you. And so, like I said, I'm going to shout you out. I'll probably even say hello to you. If you have comments, put them in the chat box. If you have questions, complaints, discussion points. We love discussion points. We may not agree, but we want the discussion points. So you can go to my YouTube channel and watch the recording. I think Jen has them on Facebook also, but she told me that it could be easier if we just everything on the YouTube channel. So I appreciate it if you go there, because I guess have my daughters tell me the more views I get on Facebook, the more subscriptions of people that I get. About said prescriptions, and that's a totally different thing. Subscriptions I get on Facebook, that's a good thing. And so anyway, just make sure you guys are on there and tell your friends and to go to YouTube and watch it. I would appreciate that, or share it on Facebook, and we'll go that way too. So Sam, what do you got on the agenda for tonight?
Actually, I like to do this. I have some topics that I want to talk about, but really I would love for us to take the next 30 seconds and have the group put out some topics they like us to talk about and see what we come up with, and maybe we'll take one or two of those. Why don't we do that? So if you're listening and you're out there and there's something you want to talk about, something you think is crazy or insane about money or wealth, or an idea that you think is interesting to talk about, just throw it out there on the chat. Pip will pick one or two of those, and we'll talk about those, in addition to what some of the stuff that I wanted to mention. While you're doing that, Pep, I'll talk a little bit about I'll wait 30 seconds. I was going to say a little bit about the market. Market was down over 600 points. The Dow was, the S&P almost 100 points. Some crazy stuff happening with the market. A big pullback, the biggest pullback, negative for the year actually, and biggest pullback, in months, and a one-day pullback. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Some crazy things in the market, like GameStop and AMC just went homicide in the last few days. People are doing what we call a short squeeze, which is buying it up, creating so much pain for the people that are shorting that they start buying, and it creates a frenzy. So GameStop's just keeps doubling and doubling in price. It's ridiculous, actually. And AMC is up, I think, just today 30%. So these are huge moves that are happening. But again, this is the game and the gambling casino of the stock market. So what do you got, Pep? You got any good stuff there?
I got rules and laws of wealth. They want to keep hearing more about that.
Okay. What specifically? I'm just thinking.
Wendy, what law or what type of questions do you have on the laws of wealth? that we've been talking about. Throw it out here. And if you don't know, I mean, you don't worry about sounding stupid or anything like that. Sam and I, every time, my wife still makes fun of me because every time I do the lives, she's like, you should know that you don't have to spend 5 minutes talking about you don't know how to do technology every time. Well, I guess you get 5 minutes of me not knowing how to do technology. So yeah, Wendy, if there's a specific thing you have, then we would love to hear that. Let me see if I can find a reply from Wendy.
Well,
Everything takes a little time to go back and forth.
okay. So let
You
me
promised us that the first episode already. So they're already going back and you promised all these rules. We've done them. I think they forgot some of them, and we got some new people on here.
Okay.
So maybe we ought to talk about what you want to talk about. Then we're going to get back to the laws of wealth.
Okay. So let's talk about something that I often actually thought was troubling, statistic that measures income growth year over year. In the United States and Canada, you're looking at about real net income growth for the citizens, the people that work and pay taxes and stuff. You're looking at about 1%. About 1% is the average increase per year after you factor in inflation. So 1% would be, on $100, you'd make $1 more. Now inflation, this is after inflation, so you're increasing your wealth, right? But at 1%, it'll take you, as Pip knows, 72 years to double your income. So it takes quite a long time to see really improvements in your income, and we know prices are going up due to inflation and other reasons, right? Markets change and move. And
I just want to say something real quick. Apparently, my other computer is logged in as my wife. So every time there's a comment coming from Jennifer Stellick, it's actually coming from me. So I just want you to know that, because
Sure.
some of you guys won't even know who Jennifer is, but I'm actually doing the comments. We can see me on the video doing it. So yeah, I'm Jennifer tonight. So there we go. I'll be Jen.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. This is good, just so they know that the humor is his and not Jen, his wife. So don't put it on her. Okay, so we were talking about income increases year over year. Okay, so if you're making 1% more a year net, that's not very much. It's pretty lean actually, and it's difficult to expand your quality of life, and what's in your life if your income's only moving up 1% a year. Now, this was concerning to me when I saw this statistic. It goes back, you can go back 50 years, and it looks very grim actually. It's 50 now, 30, 40, 50, over 50 years. So from 70s on, it's pretty flat, and when I'm doing up, it's not really like that. It's pretty much like almost a straight line of 1%. It's not very much. So this was concerning. I was thinking, how can people survive? Things are going to get worse if you're only increasing 1%. Unfortunately, this did not match up with the data of actually quality of life and living for people and what they were enjoying, experiencing in their life. So an example of what I mean about that is the way the Rockefellers lived and what they enjoyed, say in the late, 18 or even 1900s, in the early 1900s, late 1800s, in their wealth. And I'm just as an example, as a wealthy legacy and family, we're enjoying, an average citizen can enjoy. We can fly all over the world. We have access to things that they, only they couldn't even access back then. So the quality of life and the way we live and the way we eat and the way we drink is comparable to the wealthiest families 100 years ago. That's how well we live. Now, 100 years ago is quite a bit of time, but we're talking about the top 1% at the time. So how is this possible that we're living this well if our income is going up 1%? This was a problem I had to reconcile mentally. I did not understand how this was possible. And this is what it comes down to. And this is why, I'll say it, the US is the largest economy in the world and the strongest economy in the world. And it's because of competition. See, competition drives prices down. And this is what allows us to only have a 1% increase in wealth per year on average over time, and still enjoy a better quality of life. An example would be a computer. So a computer 20 years ago or 15 years ago might have cost you double or triple what it costs you now. Now, everybody has 1 or 2 or 3 computers in their house. Every individual has their own computer, which was unthinkable even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Same with cell phones. When cell phones came out, it was crazy to think that cell phones would be so inexpensive due to competition. And some of it is financing and the ability to finance these products, but it's cell phones that everybody in your house has a cell phone, including your 12-year-old and or younger, which is actually a trend in Europe far before it was in North America. Like in Europe, the kids had cell phones a decade, before we got there, right? I don't know, it was something that was adopted much earlier than we did. So in Canada and the United States, everybody has their own cell phone. We don't have home phones anymore because everyone can afford it now. So what's happening is, even though your wealth has increased by 1%, your buying power, although inflation has deteriorated over time, Canadian dollars, 6 cents of buying power, what it was, what you could buy with $1 100 years ago is worth 6 cents now. And in the US, it's 4 cents. It's actually worse. So again, when you look at these, you think, how is this possible? Because clearly we're living better than we were 50 or even 100, even 50 or even 30 years ago. How's that possible? And the reason is because of competition. Competition has driven prices down, allowing us to enjoy more goods and services. Pip.
I love to, and Sam knows this, I love to use pop culture to explain it, because some of you will remember this. And even if you weren't around when the movie was made, you might have seen it in reruns because it's kind of a classic. Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox and all the different people that are in that movie. When he goes to, and the years are 1988, and obviously nobody had a cell phone in 1988. Everybody has one now. Some people have multiple ones. Kids have them. So that's an interesting thing to think about. And that wasn't that long ago. I know if you're 25 years old or 30 years old, 1988 is forever. But when you're as old as Sam, 1988 was when you graduated from high school, kind of thing. Something like that. Maybe 89. I'm not sure about that guy. But I graduated in 86, so it's all good. But I know I've got some people on here that are closer to my age. And in the movie, Back to the Future, he goes back to 1955. So in the mid 50s. And the house that he's in is his grandparents' house, his future mom's house, that kind of thing. And they're very middle class, and they just got a TV. And he's telling one of his future uncles that, that TV is really cool. He likes this episode of The Honeymooners. And there was a joke about the rerun. What's a rerun? And they're like, you have a TV at your house? And he goes, of course, we have 2 of them. And the kid looks at him, nobody has 2 TVs. You must be rich. And you just laugh at that, because at the time, that 1955, nobody had 2 TVs.
That's
Having
right.
one TV was a luxury.
That's
and
right.
now some people have TVs in their bathrooms or in their mirror of the bathroom. So, and now that's going out of style, because everything's done with your phone, and you can put that on your bathroom counter. And Sam's right, whether it's inflation, whether it's competition, both of those things come in, not inflation, but competition comes into that, making the cost of those goods go down astronomically. So very much so.
Yeah, and it's an important point to keep in place, because sometimes statistics are insane in that we can use them any way we want. You go to imright.com, and then you just pick and choose the facts that you want, and then you can create any argument that you want. Unfortunately, these don't reconcile with experience. And I want to share something with you. We talk about the laws a lot on this show, and we talk about it in our trainings. It's important that you recognize those laws in your life with real experience. You shouldn't believe something simply because it sounds good. You should be able to experience in some way in your life. And I think that's a great lesson to take on, and something that I did and try to bestow on my son, is just because someone tells you something is real, don't just necessarily believe it if it conflicts, especially if it conflicts with your own experience. Now, the key here is to have an open mind to those experiences, especially when it comes to money. Money is such a, we need to shift away from the need for money to the want of money. really, because the need of money, I think, creates an anxiety and a stress level that's overwhelming and can paralyze you. And I'm speaking from my own personal experience. There's been times in my life where I was paralyzed and overwhelmed with my own life in my younger years, to the point where I felt like I couldn't move. And I'm sure many of you, or some of you at least, have felt that experience. And I think that money can create a paralyzing sense inside us, and a stress and an anxiety that really disengages us from experiencing life. And this is something that we need to take control of. So I think that, and me and Pip are gonna talk more about this and develop some ideas on it, about changing the concept of money, or the interaction with money, to a want instead of a need. And I'm not saying money's a necessary. There's a necessity in money to do what we have, but I think that we got to go beyond necessity. And we're very blessed to live in the United States and Canada. And actually, I mean, some of you are from, Australia, UK, or wherever you're from. These are modern economies. These economies, we're blessed just being born or being allowed to live there and enjoy the benefits of first world nations. So the need stuff is less of a concern of ours. So we want to shift maybe to a want, and using it as a tool, and not something that we stress over. This is disappointing, really, that we just participate in that. In my own life, I've spent way too much time in my younger years worrying about money and anxiety about it, and just, it's something I definitely don't want to go back down that path again. So knowing the laws of money are important, because it'll free us from that anxiety. That's the hope. Pip, you're going to say something?
Well, no, I just want to make sure we got some comments as to what to talk about. We're going to keep hitting the 5 laws of money and added bonus 6th one multiple times, and we'll bring those through everything that we talk about, because they really are a process of everything we talk about. And so even though some of you guys want us to keep talking about, we're going to keep talking about it every time we get together. One of the questions, and this is something that you put out there, I believe last week, Mr. Sam, was it's actually better to rent a property to rent your home than to own your home. So we have to address that. And it may be for next time. There's no doubt about that. And then the other question, we have addressed it on past ones, but we'll talk more about it, because each time you get new people and you get more in depth. The US dollar, and this was one of those statistics that was brought up. Somebody read where the US dollar has lost like 97% of its value over time.
That's about right. Yeah, 96 was 96, 97, which basically means that it's worth 3 or 4 cents of buying power, and that can be misleading in itself. It really can be misleading, because you think, if it's lost all this buying power, how are we expected to live a better life? And clearly, we're living a better life. 50 years ago, the whole world's a better place. And I'm not saying it's right in every aspect. There's still a lot of problems in the world, but those problems and the frequency of those problems is much less than 50 years ago, let alone 100 years ago. And I'm talking about war, famine, just destitute poverty, which still all those things exist, but not at the same level 100 years ago. Yep.
And what I want to talk about, I know I'm usually the most positive guy in every room I go into. And we talk about how bad we have it. And I heard something about somebody who was born, my daughter's 18. So she's a little bit too young for this. So what they were using is somebody born in 1999. A young person born in 1999, by the time they're now 21 years old, they've gone through 9/11, even though they were only 2 years old. They've gone through 9/11. They've gone through the global financial crisis of 2008. They've gone through lots of racial disharmony, and I don't think that's the right word, but a lot of racial strife that we've seen. We've seen things in other countries that are bad. Some wars that we've been in. We were in Iraq for the longest time, Afghanistan for the longest time, and now obviously the global pandemic. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's a terrible situation. Well, you go back to somebody who was born in 1899 and look at the first, and we'll go to 60 years of their life, and really see what happened. 2 world wars, a Great Depression. We had the Spanish flu. I hope I'm not being impolitically correct when I say that. That's what other people have called it. If they have a new name for it, I apologize.
Yeah,
it was another pandemic. They had a lot of similar things that they went through. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, talk to a person that's older, your grandparent. For me, it was my mom and dad. My dad was born in 1921. And some of you guys know the joke behind this. But if you talk to somebody who was born in the late 1919, like 1915, 1920, they're obviously going to be too old now. But somebody who was born in the early 20s, you're going to hear what happened in the Great Depression every time you talk about anything with them, because it was ingrained in their mind. And but you look back at that, I always make, and this is not a joke. I remember my mom and dad both saying this. My mom, they both passed on, but I remember, and you guys can get it with your grandparents, obviously. I remember my mom and dad always talking about getting 6 hamburgers for a quarter. 6 hamburgers for a quarter. I said, well, how big were they? I mean, they must have made sliders look like giants. And no, they said they were a normal size hamburger. And so look at that. You can't get 6 hamburgers for a quarter. I mean, you go to a nice restaurant, get a big hamburger, and you're paying, even at a Five Guys or something like that, you're paying $6-7 for a burger. McDonald's is probably $4 for a burger now. So anyway, I digress, but I like to talk about the fact that I don't think we got it so bad. Do we have a lot of problems? Yeah. But if you're focused on not having enough money, you're going to be focusing on that the rest of your life. And that's what I think Sam is trying to say here a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of improvements in the world. Again, there's lots of problems still, and we still have to address them, but it's a better place than it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago. There's no question about that. So going back to and wanting to address the 5 laws, reviewing them, the first law being all wealth is created. Really important to know that and understand that, because not understanding that can create a hardship mentally and anxiety about money, because it breeds scarcity. If you don't think wealth is created and you think there's a limited supply of wealth, you're going to feel like there's not enough to go around, right? There's not enough to go around because there's only so much in the world. And if I don't get my piece, then how am I going to survive? And if someone else gets some, I don't like that. I covet, or I envy them because they have it and I don't, and I can't get it. This is the poison that actually runs through our mentally about money, because we think there's not enough. So we can't be happy for someone's success. This is horrific. And I speak this from my own experience growing up with a limited supply, because my mother was an immigrant to the country. She raised 5 kids basically on her own, and it was, finances were something that was a shadow over them. And my mother only knew what she knew, right? She did the best that she could, which was awesome, right? She's a super mom because she took care of us and be able to give us what we have. So but there was only limited information she gave me about money. So money in my family, it was bad to talk about money. You didn't talk about money. You didn't, and this is right there, you're in trouble. I mean, if you can't talk about money, how are you going to understand it? And it was to have too much. There was a sense that you could have too much. And this is what my mother learned from her family and, generations. Pip talks about this. This is 150 years of programming, at least mentally and inside us. So this is a challenge. It's different for me and my son. We talk about money all the time, and I want him to understand it because I don't want him to fear it. So if you don't understand that money's created from nothing, right? That it can be created from nothing, then you're going to feel like there's a scarcity. And recognize this about wealth. Wealth is a human idea. We invented it. It's not something any other real animal really participates in or tries to, squirrels don't, let's get extra nuts so we can sell them at the market. Honeys don't make extra honey so they can sell it, at the farmer's market or at the Costco, or you call them whatever, Sam's Club. They don't do that. Animals don't do that. People do that, and we haven't been doing it that long in our history. It was only when we had excess stuff that we started recognizing the concept of wealth. So this is relatively a new idea in our history. Yeah, Pip? Sorry, you're going to say something?
What I want to say to some of you guys, and I'm going to keep touting the positive mentality that we all need to have. Now, I've known Sam, I believe 2009 was the first time that I met him. It was either 2009, 2010. And he has changed and grown exponentially in the time that I've known him. And I mean that in the kindest way. But when I met Sam, he was around 40 years old. Now he's in his early 50. And so what I'm trying to say is some of you guys are older that are on the call tonight, and some of you guys are way younger than Sam was when I met him. And what I'm trying to say is it takes time to change. You're not going to do it overnight. But I love Sam's comment is you're going to change in inches. Either you're going to improve in inches or you're going to kill yourself in inches. And you don't know it because it's in inches. You don't know how much it changes if you just go an inch or two off kilter in the wrong direction, and all of a sudden after 6 months or a year, you're no longer inches, you're miles from your goal. And that's really the mentality that you have to do. So what I'm getting at is we can all change. I'm going to say to you guys, I was very lucky. My dad and mom were somewhat risk takers. It was calculated risk, don't get me wrong, but I come from a line of people who were wanting to be business owners, wanting to create for themselves and not work for somebody else. My grandfather was that way. Some of you guys know what IGA grocery stores are. I always talk about my dad having an IGA grocery store because that's the one I remember. My grandfather had one of the first IGA stores in the 1920s or 30s in a little town called Dorchester, Nebraska. And so they literally were business owners from day one. And I think this is the problem. And I don't know when you go back to, is it 1890s, 1900s, when we started to get employee mentalities? If you go back before 1900 in most societies, most all of your ancestors were entrepreneurial or living off the land or whatever they were doing. After 1900, people like Ford and Carnegie, they needed employees to run their factories. That's when the employee mentality came to be. And so literally, that's when I think the world really changed. And what I'm seeing in the last, I'm going to say 20 years with the technology age, it's changing back a little bit to not having to have that employee mentality. So one of the things I'm so excited about, and Sam, I know I'm talking more than I normally do, so that's good. You don't get to talk as much tonight, is the fact that, and I know some of you guys were on a challenge that we did, and we have an education company that we're doing. I think, and I'll use Andres and some of the other young guys on the call tonight, the 18, 20, 22-year-old, there's still going to be a lot of people that go to traditional education route. But I also see with everything we learned in the last 10, 12 months now with the pandemic, is that maybe that traditional education model isn't as common after this, because we can do it in different mentalities, whether it be through Zoom or other mediums like this. But what I also think you're going to see is people are going to realize having a traditional job doesn't make a lot of sense in these types of times. Being nimble, being able to change, being able to, what's the common word today? Pivot. I hate that word, by the way. Pivot in different directions. I think there's a huge opportunity for all of us. And when you learn rule number one, law number one of money, that all wealth is created, you don't any longer fret or worry about the threat of not having an employer pay you every week. Just a thought. Sorry, Sam, go ahead, my friend.
Oh, it's all right. No, this is great. I mean, what's interesting, it just made me think of a point actually that we're actually seeing. So there was a period pre-industrial age where there was a lot of entrepreneurship out of someone's home. So someone might be a blacksmith, someone might sew clothes, someone might, individual economy, a lot of individual economies. This is like, even in bartering times, but when it got more advanced and there was still exchange, some sort of exchange, could have been silver, gold, copper, seashells, could have been salt, whatever it was. There was a lot of individual economies, and what happened was the Industrial Revolution. So imagine that you were someone who you made clothes, right? You sewed clothes, you made dresses, you made shirts, whatever it is. And then when the factories came along and just basically wiped them out, and it would take you years to get that profession to be, what do you call a clothes maker, Pip? What are they called?
Taylor?
Maybe a tailor, I guess a tailor, yeah, would be the right phrase. So it would take you time to become a tailor or whatever it is, the profession they had, but it was an individual economy, very small household economies. What's interesting to me, okay, so the Industrial Revolution wiped that out. Obviously, factories, machines, steam engine, all this, evolution changed everything, that the mass production and the assembly line just changed everything, that you couldn't compete with them. Very much actually like a Walmart to a, neighborhood IGA, right? It's a mammoth, against this little guy. What's interesting is because of technology, we're seeing a resurgence of entrepreneurship, exactly what Pip was saying, that people are going back to more individual economies, providing individual products and services, which is awesome because it gives us more individual control over our personal finances and our economy. Yeah, Pip.
I'm just looking up synonyms for clothes maker. So an outfitter, a garment maker, a clothier, a seamstress, a dressmaker, something like that. We're
Yeah.
haberdashers.
What's that? Haberdashers?
Haberdasher.
Haberdashery. Haberdashery. I'm in the haberdashery business, which I think means you sell a bunch of just random stuff. Haberdashery store. I
Yeah.
think that's what it means. I don't know. But it's interesting to see that there seems to be a resurgence of individual economies, which is kind of cool, which is awesome. I think that's great to embrace the entrepreneurship and that you can control your economy. Because Pip's right, there is a antagonizing relationship between employee and employer, and people fight over that stuff. Yeah,
A haberdashery,
yeah.
men's clothing and accessories in North America.
There you go. I guess it's men's clothing and accessories. And that's what we do. We fact check on our show.
We're haberdashers, baby. We're talking about haberdashers. I remember the term from like the 1920s New York City. There was all the haberdashers were, and there was another word for it that did all the garment manufacturing. There was the garment district.
Yeah, the haberdashery district.
Well, it was the garment district, but they were all sold by haberdashers or haberdashery stores. I can't believe I've used the word haberdashery 7 times now in tonight's call. But the thing is, that whole industry's changed exponentially since the 20s and 30s.
Yes.
Now most of our garments are made in other countries. So go ahead, Sam. I'm really tired tonight.
So first law of wealth is wealth is that all wealth is created. Second law is that you can't trap wealth. This is very important. Now, you can't trap wealth. This is one of the reasons actually it's better to rent than own. Really, it is that you can't trap wealth, which means that the pursuit of net worth is futile. It's not a good idea to pursue net worth. It's not a good idea to buy and own things as a resource of wealth, to try to trap wealth, to grow wealth. Owning things, in fact, you'll hear us talk about in our trainings, and even on the show, we'll say that real investors own nothing. They control everything. We absolutely use leverage and corporations to distance ourselves from the ownership of that asset, because the ownership is the worst part of it. You know, the worst part of a business is the ownership part. The worst part of an investment is the ownership part. So we don't actually want to own anything, including your home.
I gotta talk. I don't know why I guess I got some energy.
Get in there, buddy.
Think about this, and what I want to simplify, because some people are going, "What do you mean owning the business isn't good?" So when you woke up this morning, if you own a business, do you get excited about the employees calling you with problems, the customers calling you with problems, the machinery breaking down? Gregor, you owned an ice cream parlor. Were you excited when the freezers weren't working or the product wasn't delivered or you had to order the product? No, none of those things made you excited. What made you excited is you made the ice cream cone for 50 cents and you sold it for $3. So you made $2.50 every time you sold it. So really, what are you investing for? The cash flow.
That's right.
And that's what it's in a property the same way. In a property, do you get excited about having somebody to mow the lawn, shovel the snow, fix the furnace? No, you get excited about the fact that your mortgage payment and all your costs are $2,000 a month and the tenant's paying you $2,500 every month. That's what you get excited about. And that's what we talk about. Business is the most important, or the cash flow is more important than the business.
That's right. Yeah, you absolutely. The liabilities in the ownership. The ownership is the liability. So you don't want to own it. You don't want to own it. And a quick story about ownership. In the United States, when the crash came, and this happened in other places, but just as an example, the United States. So in 2008, and that whole collapse of the housing market, when the banks actually went down the list of properties that were in foreclosure, and these are just average people, right? The foreclosure, they listed them from highest equity to lowest equity, and they got to foreclose because there's no more payments coming in. The unemployment skyrocketed. People are unemployed. They're missing payments. Got to start taking these houses back. So of course the bank took out, went after the properties with the highest equity, right? Take those properties because if we liquidate them, the losses are smaller. We might even make a little bit, but mostly it's just to reduce the losses. And as you come down the list and you see less and less and less and less equity, and believe me, there was a lot of them that had zero equity or negative equity, which means that there was owed more than the value because of the collapse. Those properties, actually, they asked the owner to come in and sit down. Let's talk in the boardroom. Can I get you an espresso? And the person's thinking, what's going on here? Because they got the keys in their hand, ready to give the keys over, thinking they lost the house. And they say, you say, here's the keys. And they're like, no, we don't want the keys. We want to sit down with you and talk about how we can keep you in this house. You see, they wanted him to stay in the house because taking possession of that property was absolute the worst thing the bank could do. So the people that paid zero on their mortgage, that had negative, could renegotiate their mortgage. The people with the highest equity positions in their mortgages often lost their houses. They lost their houses first. So the guy that got up every day, the woman that got up every day, worked, paid her bills, tried to pay down her mortgage as quickly as possible, which is insane in itself, considering it's the best loan you'll ever get in your life. Why you would want to pay that down quickly is crazy. But this is what we believe, right? To own that house is what we want. Those are the people who lost the house. And Pip talks about this, in classes. He'll say, hey, who if you have a mortgage with Chase, or you have a mortgage with TD or Canada Trust, or a Bank of America, if you have a mortgage with these companies, who owns your house? And everybody would say the same thing: the bank does. And Pip would say, go ahead, Pip.
Bank doesn't own jack squat. That's exactly what I would say.
That's right.
They control it without owning it, just like we're telling y'all to do.
That's right. So they don't own your house. They don't want to own your house. They don't even want it to be a property, because we make this joke, but it's true. There's no money in property, not when you do it that way. So the bank doesn't want to own your property. You're the name on the deed. It's not the bank, and Pip used to make that joke. If they owned your investment properties, you could call them up at 2:00 in the morning and say, can you send an executive over because the toilet's leaking? But they don't own that house. They don't want to own it. They do exactly what Pip said, which was control with ownership, or without ownership. And that's exactly what we want to do. So understanding the second law is important, because it stops you from trying to pursue ownership of things, right? And this is another one that it's tough to come to grips with, but it's true. Wealthy people are not materialistic. Middle class and working class people are materialistic. They try to own and have things. Wealthy people just want to control them. They don't want the ownership. How do you like that one? Wealthy people are materialistic. So if we want to become wealthy, if we want to become, at least forget about wealthy, just financially independent. And that could be any number, by the way. There's no number for financial independence. It's the quality of life that you want to live. And even quality is something that you define. So it's not an amount of money. I used to think when I was younger, the first time I made money, I was like, $26,000. Wow, this is a lot of money. I mean, wow, this is amazing. If I could only make $30,000, and then when I made 30, I was like, wow, this is great, $30,000. If I could only make 50,000, then I could buy that car I wanted. I got to 50,000, bought the car, and I was like, gee, 50,000 is great. If I could just get to the $100,000 gap, oh my gosh, I'd be set. Got to the 100,000, right? Buy that house I wanted. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The number is irrelevant. It's how you want to live your life relative to that money. Each time I was increasing my income, I was increasing the tax on my time. And Pep, the first one that introduced me to that idea, is time is everything. So it's time's a commodity that we really want, not the money. The money is only good for us because it allows us to control time. That's the only reason we like money, the quality of our time. So pursuing net worth is a serious flaw in finance. It's a man jumping off a cliff and falling and thinking he's flying. It's the same concept. You're losing value on your hard assets that you own all the time, over time, just due to inflation. Okay, so then we go to the third law.
Let's talk about that for just a second on the bank side of it. Because what's the bank doing? They're loaning you money for cash flow. That's what they're doing. They're borrowing the money. Check this out. You guys have something similar to CDs in Canada.
We do, GICs.
GICs, Guaranteed Investment Certificates. We call them CDs, Certificates of Depreciation. They all mean the exact same Certificate of Deposit. They all mean the exact same thing. They're saying, okay, Michelle, give me your money. We'll give you 1%. And what do? They go out and lend it out at, let's just say 3%. I know my math may be a little bit off with today's numbers, but that's what they do. They borrow from you at one level, they lend it out at a higher level. So they don't care about owning the house. What do they care about doing? Getting the cash flow from the loan. They're paying you $1,000, getting $1,100 or $1,200 from me on the mortgage. So they'll do that all day long, twice on Sunday, and a million times if you let them. And what do they have? They actually have collateral. If something happens, they could take the property back. And what do they also do? Do they loan you at 100% loan to value very often? Only place I know they do that is for vets in the United States. And quite frankly, that's good. I think they should. But the best case scenario is they're going to loan you at 96.5 here in the United States, 3.5% down. But what happens is they hedge their bet by you getting private mortgage insurance, and they also have programs in place. We have one here called FHA that actually help fund those programs, or should I say underwrite them is what they do. What they really want to do, the bank really wants to loan you at 80% loan to value or less. Why? Because what's rule number one when it comes to when I talk about real estate? Make money in the buy. So if they have to buy it back from you, what do they want to do? They want to buy it at a discount. So all these things come right back into play. And I literally cannot stress enough, Sam's laws of money follow right with this stuff that we talk about with banks. And so why do I always make the joke, I want to be the bank? Now, somebody made the comment on one of the chats, do we think the US dollar is going to explode, whatever, implode? And Sam and I have said this, and this is a young man who's been on, first time I think he's been on the wealth debate. He might have watched some of the other ones. It's Andres. He's 21 years old. Sam, what do you tell somebody if they think the US dollar is going to explode or go down in value?
Yeah. So if the US dollar, if you feel like the US dollar is going to collapse, you absolutely should get into as much debt as possible. And the reason you want to get into as much debt as possible is because if the currency itself collapses, the contract and agreement you have with the institution, the lender, so the lender lends you $100,000 of US dollars, so 100,000 US dollars. If the dollar collapses, you only got to pay them back in US dollars. That's all you got to pay them back is in US dollars. So let's say for some reason you guys decide to adopt the Canadian dollar. So you adopt the Canadian dollar, and one Canadian dollar is 1,000 US dollars, because that's how bad the US dollars collapse. You could pay back the institution with 100 Canadian dollars would pay back the bank their 100,000 US dollars, and you only had to give them 10 Canadian dollars. So you absolutely want to go into debt if you think there's going to be a collapse, or you believe that inflation is going to continue, which it is. We hope it is. So you want to be in debt because you can actually profit from inflation. So here's the craziest thing. Just give me 1 second. I just want to make this point. I'll throw it right back. Okay. So this is when you know you have something special. When either or gives you the same answer. There's a riddle. If we have time, I'll tell you the riddle at the end of the show. But if the answer to two different questions is the same thing, that's when you know you got something powerful. So if you think the US dollar is going to collapse, you should go into debt. If you think the US dollar is not going to collapse, you should go into debt. That's when you know you have the right answer. And I'm telling you, it's powerful. When you take debt as a tool and you use it properly, it will be the strongest financial tool that you have ever used. It's unbelievable. This man taught me about debt. Really, first time someone really explained to me about debt was Ben. And when I took it, I went crazy with it. And really dug deep into it, it changed my whole perspective. I do not want to own anything. I want to control things. And that's how I live my life. And this is the lessons I'm teaching my son. Remember that when you get the same answer to the two different questions, you know you got something powerful. And guess what? The 5 laws plus 1, they do that for you. And we'll go through them and continue to go through them because we want you to embrace them, experience them, very important, experience them in your own life and apply them and reap the rewards of them. Yep.
Well, I mean, and I just want to say, we don't want you to take a risk that you can't handle financially or you can't handle mentally. You may be able to handle it financially, you don't even know it yet. Because when you look at debt and Sam likes to call it deliberate debt.
Deliberate debt, yeah.
Deliberate debt. So you control it. You want to understand what you're getting into and why you're getting into it. Because the goal of debt is to be paying $1,000 for the debt and getting $1,500 of income for it. That's the goal. And so that's the cash flow that we talk about. So we want deliberate debt. We also want to understand that if you say, hey, you know what, if I go borrow all this money, I can't sleep at night, then by all means, don't do it. We're trying to educate at a level that really, we have to understand there's a logic behind it, as Sam says. And what I'm going to make Sam do is give us the riddle here in just a second, because we're not going to get through all 5 laws. I think Sam thinks we're going to get through all 5 laws every time we talk. Obviously can go deeper. And I think Marlon said something about doing a deep dive. I love the whole deep dive and pivot from 2020 folklore now. Eventually that we're going to actually go back to the year 2020. And obviously there's going to be a lot of sad things, but there's going to be a lot of things that we go back and say, well, that was a word that we really didn't use much, or it meant something else before 2020. So yeah, we're going to be doing more deep dives into this, and we can keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the point being is that obviously each week we do this, we're going to share more. I'm going to put on the docket right here. Now, Sam's already alluded to it. For next week, we're going to get into really some more crunching of the numbers, why renting is better than owning. We'll get more into that. You've already alluded to it tonight. Talked about it for about 30 minutes, but we can talk about that a lot more. Definitely do that. And so I think we have to understand is that this is a big topic and it's a discussion, and we want to have you guys keep saying stuff back and forth. Andres, I know I don't think I've seen, you might have watched these when we weren't live, and I'm great. It's great to have you. Amit, great to have you. Some people that I haven't seen in a while, and so it's awesome. And so keep Marlon, first time I've seen you on here, and I know, like I said, you guys may have seen him on a recording, and that's cool. We know it doesn't always line up with your schedule. So if you can be live, obviously, we love that because I love going back and forth with you guys. And not that you're even arguing, it's more like questioning. I heard this from somewhere else. What we want you guys to be able to do, and I think this is probably one of the most important things, especially for, and I don't care if you're young or old, especially for you guys that are getting into property and getting mortgages and things like that. I want you to be able to explain to your spouse, your significant other, your parents, your kids, why this is a good move. And here's the problem. If all you have is debt is good debt is good, bad debt is bad, and that's the end of your argument, your mom and dad are going to tell you you're nuts. Because what if they've got 150 years of programming backing them up, telling you your good debt, bad debt speech ain't so good. But if we can start to use some of these concepts, and I think the easiest one to use is we invest for cash flow, because I don't think anybody can argue with, if you pay $1,000 and you get $1,500, and that's including all your expenses, your maintenance, all that kind of cost. You're saving for a rainy day fund. So you're taking part of that $500 every month, putting it aside in case a furnace breaks down or whatever, because you will have that kind of stuff. But we're always investing for cash flow. And when they say, well, what's the problem with that? Aren't you going to have tenants that tear it up? Mom, Dad, have you ever borrowed money from the bank? Most people are going to say, yeah. Okay, Mom, Dad, when you borrowed that money, was there a chance that you weren't going to pay it back? There's a chance, isn't there? Every time the bank issues a credit card, is there a chance that you won't pay it back? The answer is yes. So as long as we either have a higher interest rate to control our risk, or we have collateral to control our risk, and the bank does both sides of that, they'll give you a 29.9% credit card or 19.99% credit card all day long with no collateral. Why would they do that? Because the interest rate is higher. You're getting paid a premium for the risk. Oh, but we'll give you a 1 or 2% mortgage. Why? Well, because there's value. They find that they have the value of the property. They're only going to lend you a certain percentage, so they're making money in the buy. Plus, they're borrowing money at a cheaper rate and lending it out to you at a higher rate. I'll get off my high horse. I've talked more tonight than I have in the last 4 wealth debates, I think, combined.
Good stuff, buddy. All good stuff. So as Pip was saying about the bank, very important example to understand money, because they've been doing it a long time and they're very good at it. And you think, if you go into debt, I often get the question, you go into debt, you have to pay it back. And really the answer is no. As long as you're servicing the debt, they don't want you to pay it back. The lender does not want you to pay it. The bank doesn't want you to pay it back. And when you think about it in this terms, when you put money in the bank and they say give you in a CD 1%, the bank would love you to keep that money your whole lifetime. They'll never pay you back the money. They'll just keep paying you the 1%, 1%, 1%, 1% on the CD, and they'll lend that money out and make exponential returns. So the bank doesn't want to pay you back that money, because when you put that money in the bank, they owe you that money. They actually owe you that money, that you're a depositor. So when you think of it in that terms, maybe that helps you better understand that the value for the bank is they don't ever want to pay you back that money, just want to pay you that little bit of interest and then use that money over and over again. So what we'll do is we're going to wrap up. Pip, is that what we should do, buddy?
I'm getting comments and they're very nice. Once a week of this isn't enough. So you got
that's very nice. Okay, so why don't we do the riddle?
I want you to do, just a couple of things. Sam's going to do a riddle, a couple of housekeeping things after the riddle. Sure. Go for it, sure. Sam.
Okay, here's the riddle, okay? So you come up to it. Some of you might know the answer to this, or you've been told this riddle. So you're walking down this road, and the road splits into two, okay? And one road is to hell, and one road is to heaven. And you don't know which way to go, right? You don't know which way to go, but one way is hell and one way is heaven, right? And that could mean anything, right? That mean bliss, joy, and the other one is just torment, wealth and poverty. It doesn't really matter. One's good, really good, or one really sucks. That's what you know for sure. Okay, so you don't know which way to go. You're like, which way am I going to go? And you realize, wait a minute, there's two guys sitting on stools on both ends of these roads. One's on this side, one's on this side. One road goes this way, and one road goes this way. And you think, let me ask these guys which way to go. Maybe they can help me. And this is the problem. Is you read a sign above the one guy that says, "I tell nothing but lies." You're like, what? And you go, I can't talk to this guy. You go over this way, and this guy says, "I tell nothing but the truth." So he's got a sign that says, "I tell nothing but the truth." So this guy always lies. No matter what you ask him, he's gonna lie to you, right? And this guy, no matter what you ask him, he's always gonna tell you the truth. You can ask them one question and one question only. And by asking this one question, you will know which way to go. What is that question? Now, I've already given you a tip, but I'll give it to you again. The question has to be answered the same by both of them. That's when you know you have something powerful. That's how you know you're going down the right path. So you figure out what that one question is. And remember, I need them to both answer the question the same way. In fact, what I'm trying to do, just to be more clear, is I want them to point in the same direction. And if I get them to point in the same direction, I'll know which way to go. Okay, I'll know which way to go. Remember what we said? You get the same answer to different questions. You know you got something powerful. Okay, this is a question that gives you the same two answers. Okay, excellent. So I guess that's the riddle. Pip, you want to do?
Did you want to answer for them?
What's that?
Are you just giving them the riddle, right?
I'm just giving them the riddle. You can answer when we come back on the next show.
Yeah,
Don't look it up either. Don't look it up. Try to figure it out. Actually, try to figure it out.
So you might have to rewind this and watch it again, because his explanation of the riddle was a little riddle.
What? That was great. That's great. There's a path. There's some roads. The road splits. Here's the path. The road splits. Okay. Good stuff, bad stuff. Two guys sitting on a stool with a sign over their head. I always lie. I always tell the truth. Yeah, it's simple.
Ask them who had. So I've got an answer.
Okay.
You want me to say the answer? That one of the answers.
Okay, go ahead. What's the answer?
Or you want to hold them in suspense until next week?
Oh, I'm sure some people want to know the answer. Some people don't want to know the answer.
You know how to keep a Canadian in suspense?
That's funny. That's funny. So don't answer it, because some people don't want the answer. They want the opportunity to do the riddle mentally in their mind. I know I was one of those guys. I didn't want the answer. Let me try to figure it out.
I got so many Canadians on here, so I had to say, how do you keep a Canadian in suspense? So you have to. I don't have a lot of Canadian jokes, I really don't, but I've been there a lot. But okay, so housekeeping. Share this with other people, please. We love it when you do that. Share it with other people. Second thing is, make sure also if you want to go and watch this repeat on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate that. Tell your friends about it. Go to my YouTube channel. That way they don't have to comment or feel like they're commenting on anything. Just listen. And what'll be interesting is, if we get some new blood on the YouTube channel, we're going to start getting some people that are pushing back to what we're saying. And there is nothing bad with that. It's okay to have a healthy debate. And one of the things I hope our countries, and it's way more US than Canada, you guys can tell me about this in Canada, over the last, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, and it's obviously exponentially gotten worse in the last couple of years, is we don't have a friendly debate. It's not like if I say something and Michael Manny doesn't agree with me, we can't have a debate and then go have a drink or have a meal after that. Now it seems like if Michael and I don't like or don't agree with each other, we have to dislike each other. And I don't think that's the way it should be, because I have lots of friends that sit on different political thoughts than I do, on different issues. I have friends that have different religious beliefs than I do. And that doesn't mean I'm right and they're wrong. It just means that we're different. Let's agree to be different, but let's agree to be friendly about it. So I hope that we can plant that seed, because there's way too much negativity out there. And so it's really cool. It's really cool that, we can start to see this process. So I'm getting Facebook messages, and I'm trying to read this as I'm talking. I can't do that very well, but it seems like it's pretty cool. I don't remember this guy, and it's quite funny. Lives in Bel Air Beach, Florida. Wow. Can I say this? Can I
How do
say
you,
this? Can I read it?
how many Canadians, how do you leave a Canadian suspense? Wow.
Till next week. Wow. Hey, Pip. So everybody wants to know. I was talking to Cora this week. I've talked to Marlon this week. I've talked to Wendy last week. I haven't talked to some of you enough lately. Everybody wants to know why. And then some of you guys were on the challenge last week, and you're like, man, the energy is off the charts. It's off the charts. It's crazy energy. And so I'm like, they're like, why do you do it? I mean, you obviously, well, first of all, I enjoy it. And secondly, I'm not going to say names or anything, but this guy says, hey, Pip, watching this first time. So he's on here right now. Never had a chance to thank you, but basically retired at 46 and controls a lot of real estate. So and I'm not going to get all the numbers, but he just wants to say thank you. And that to me is why I do everything that I do. Because at some point, this guy is going to tell his kids are already living a different life if he has a family, or his parents or his spouse, whoever. I don't know his family situation. I'm going to obviously, what do you call it? Troll somebody when you do that. Yeah. I'm going to see him on Facebook here. But the point I want to make is, why do you do this? Because you affect families. And I look at Michelle Gauthier on here. I'm sure I pronounced her name incorrectly, but I know they've told me, Mike and her told me their life just with the seeds that we planted. Did we do the work? No. All I did was light a fire under some of you guys. I didn't do any of the work. I mean, I was there to support, and we're going to be there always to support, but who does the work? You do the work. If somebody just gave you the money, you wouldn't appreciate it near as much. And you'd probably lose it after a period of time, because it's not about just somebody giving you money. And so to hear those kinds of comments, and so I appreciate that to the gentleman that put that on there. And I'm not going to say names or dollar amounts, but changed his life 12 years ago when we met. And that's pretty cool. To be able to have that kind of effect on people, that's the difference between being successful and significant. You're successful in your life, your job, your career, your parent or grandparent. You can be successful at all those things. But being significant is when you're off this earth and people are talking about you, especially if you're not a family member. That's huge. Sam says you want to basically live forever. It's to have people talking about you forever and just making those little changes in your lives. Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. And that's what it comes down to is we think real estate, we think, and I'm going to steal Sam's terms because I think he's stolen a couple of mine. So it's two for one kind of thing going on right now. Deliberate debt. I like that. I always say debt is good if you know how to manage it, if it gives you cash flow. But I like the term deliberate debt because it really is something you want to go into. But you have to do it on an educated format so that you're not just willy-nilly getting debt out there. And certain strategies allow you to make sure that you have, Rodrigo, how are you, my friend? How to actually use that debt the right way. So, Sam, anything? I've talked more tonight than I've talked all the wealth debates combined now. So that's good.
That's true. So what we're gonna do is I'm trying to convince Pip to do a podcast, right? I want to be able to do a podcast with Pip so we can actually put the podcast up. We can do that, right? You up for that, buddy?
Can I ask a question?
Sure you can.
What's really the difference between a podcast and YouTube? I know somebody's going to start typing in, well, this is the difference between them. I'm so naive, don't know. So if a podcast is better than a YouTube channel,
it's not actually. It's another way. It's another way to communicate with people to access the content that we provide. That's
I just got a yes with a bunch of S's on it. So that must mean they want the podcast.
Yeah. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna get that going, and that way you can access on iTunes and other sources like what's the other music one? I can't remember now.
Apple Music, different things like that.
Yeah, you'll be able to access the podcast. We'll do it weekly, and maybe we'll do a second show on the podcast, and hopefully I'm hoping that with the podcast we can get more guests on, because we really do want guests on the show that really have a different perspective or similar perspective. We don't care. What we do care about is the dialogue, the debate. That's what we think the most comes out of that debate.
I'm getting a lot of comments about podcast is good. We got invited to be on Marlon's podcast. So Marlon, I'll come on your podcast, no problem. Sam and I both will, but then you're going to need to give us some insider information on it. I don't know how to do it all. I think I've got all the equipment. I got microphones and lights. I look like I'm in a studio in California right now. But definitely, Marlon, I'll talk to you about that because we've already had some conversations. Spotify is another audience you can get to. Michelle's. This is what I love because I feel like I'm on the phone talking to 25 people at the same time. So this is awesome. Michelle is saying different audience, great to listen to in the car. So there's obviously some great opportunities to do that. And once again, you're speaking to the Mr. Naive when it comes to technology. I did my first Facebook Live, I think in September or October, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but obviously it's a great medium to get to people. And I've been getting comments from people I haven't seen in 30 plus, maybe 40 years, which means it's reaching a different audience, which is really cool. So a podcast might reach some different audience. And I think one of the things Sam and I really want to do is get people with other opinions. And if you get some people that are outside of your Facebook network, I tend to think a lot, not all, but most of the people in the Facebook network probably agree to a lot of the things we're talking about or want to learn more about those things to use them in their business. And that's great. And so let's do podcast. That's a hashtag. Don't know what that means, but Rodrigo, let's do a podcast. I'm not going to mention your name, the person who's private messaging me about their success, but I'm so elated that I have that and I haven't talked to this gentleman in probably 10 years. So I will be reaching out to him because that is really cool to hear his story. So I'm over the moon tonight. This has been my favorite podcast, probably because I talked more than you did this time.
It was excellent. That was awesome, buddy. And I think that again, right, the more conversations we have about this, the more perspectives that we share and express, and they don't have to agree. We want that. We really do, because our ultimate goal is for you to have independence over the challenges of finance and wealth. This is a deep desire of ours. And whatever your image of success is, whatever your goal of financial independence or independence period, we would love to be able to contribute to that in any way, small or large. So this is what we're hoping this debate will do. And we're hoping you ask these questions of yourself. Please don't just take the words as they are. Try to apply them or see them in your own life so you can validate them for yourself. And that's most likely when you'll start really integrating them in your life in a serious way to help you accelerate your independence. So please participate, engage, share this message with other people. And when someone's giving you a different perspective, don't just shut it down. Let's talk about it. Let's express it. Let's understand it. Because if we all seek the truth, then the debate can go on and on and on without anybody calling anybody a name or getting angry or getting upset. We want that dialogue. Yes.
Awesome. So guys, next week we'll be on here again. I'm double checking on schedule. Make sure we don't have any stupid schedule things for next Wednesday, because we've done that before. Yes. So next week, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central, wealth debate. Tell other people about it. Please make sure you're making comments. Even if you have somebody watching it on the replay, they can put comments on there as well. If they watch it on YouTube, they won't be able to do that, but go to the I think it's just called Pip Stellick's YouTube. I think it's just Pip Stellick. No idea.
Maybe we need to create one that says wealth debate, or
I'm sure we can do
that's that. All right. See, this is how crazy we are with technology. We're not we might know some things, but there's some things we don't know.
Well, I know certain things, but I know there's a lot more that I don't know than I do know. That's what it is. Yes. So, well, guys, have a great evening. Turn to somebody you like, somebody you don't like, somebody you know, somebody you don't know, and tell them you're going to be all right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great evening.